So thanks everybody for tuning in to the Friday Senior Solutions Agency training call. We got a great show lined up for you. Your two hosts here, I'm Joe Johnson, Jimmy Hernandez out of San Antonio, Texas. And we will get the show on the road. Just a couple of real quick announcements. Starter kit. Thanks everybody that placed your orders. I made an announcement. We got the updated revised folders in, and after we made that announcement, I got a lot of orders, so appreciate everybody getting their orders in. If you didn't get your order in, you want to get the updated folder, just contact me here in the office and we'll get you your folders out to you. And then I believe, I'm not sure if anyone on this call doesn't have FBX Toolkit. I'm assuming most people do, but hey, maybe you're new, maybe you're, watching this as a replay on YouTube, 6 months from now, and you don't know what FBX Toolkit is. Make sure you get signed up for it. It's an amazing tool. Like I said, every week we're getting amazing feedback on agents that are using FBX Toolkit. It's very inexpensive. It's $114 for the year. When you're with Senior Solutions, you get a free trial, so you get to try it out for a couple of weeks before you have to pay for it. So it's just a really, really, really good, really good tool. And then so our topic, it's kind of a two-part call. What Jimmy and I are going to get into a little bit later is really give you some tips and techniques and some of our thought process in the home on how to be more effective and increase your effectiveness in your in-home presentation. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. This way you can get, if you hit the notification bell, you'll get notifications, and we put out new content every single week. So I appreciate everybody who is subscribed to the channel. We try very hard to give you truthful and very insightful content. The one thing about our channels, one thing we do here at Senior Solutions is that we really don't have any filters. We tell you the way we perceive things with honesty and integrity and transparency. When it comes to our product training, we just tell you the way it is. We tell you, if it's on a particular product, we try to dive in and tell you all the good things about that product. And if there's any negativity about a certain product or a carrier, we're going to bring that to the forefront as well. So that way you really know everything that there is to know. So before we get into to that part, Jimmy and I wanted to do kind of a real quick segment here that we've entitled Breaking Through the Comfort Zone. And we're going to spend a little bit of time and talk about what is when we talk about comfort zone, what is the comfort zone? Well, the comfort zone, unfortunately, is where I would say most people live, 90–95% of their time, whether you're in sales or you have a corporate job. I know when you have a job, it's very easy to get into a comfort zone. You don't like doing extra things. You get kind of a routine. So if you're working a 9-to-5, a regular job, it's very, very easy to kind of get trapped in the comfort zone and whatever your daily routine is. In the comfort zone, that's where we feel the safest. That's what we call our safe spot. Everybody's got their own comfort zones, okay? But what we have found, in not only just myself and Jimmy, because we talked about this earlier this morning about things that we've done personally to get out of our comfort zone. But if you look at anybody that's ever been successful in anything, whether it's a job, academics, sports, it's people that have been willing to get out of the comfort zone. Even in corporate America, You know, the people that are at the top, the people that are the managers and the presidents and the CEOs and the CFOs of the company, the only way they were able to achieve that success is to get out of the norm, get out of their comfort zone, and be willing to do more than what's expected. And when you transition from there's basically four phases we're going to be talking about. The comfort zone, and then going from the comfort zone, we go into what we call the fear zone. So it's just human nature that anytime we're going to try something new, is that we got to be able to make that transition from the doing something that's comfortable and doing something what is the unknown. And it's fearful. Anytime we do something new, regardless of what it is, it could be, you know, if you like to cook, maybe you're making a new recipe and you're fearful that the recipe's not going to turn out right. So you know, maybe you have a little bit of anxiety, but once you learn the technique and you can improve that. In sales, going from the fear zone could be, you know, learning a new sales script, or maybe you're new to final expense and you've never door knocked before. I know, Jimmy, for me personally, when I first got into the insurance business, the initially the company that I worked with, it's like nobody door knocked. Like that was like crazy talk to go out in door knock. We just all made phone calls and we booked appointments over the phone. And I developed a high level of comfort making phone calls. But even I just take that back. Even before that, I had never really made calls to book appointments. So I can remember the anxiety and the fear I had from, you know, taking a lead and calling somebody I've never talked to before to try to book an appointment. And then in 2010, when I started working final expense leads, and I found out that the most effective way to work final expense was to door knock, man, I was like, I can just remember, I don't know about the first time you ever did it, but I can remember me, man, I was like scared shitless. I mean, I had a lot of fear when I went out and made my first door knock.
Wow.
I'm going to turn it over to you and let you kind of expand on comfort zone and transitioning into the fear zone.
Thank you, Joe. I'll just tell you real quick since you brought it up. I remember my very first door knock. It was in Corpus Christi, and I had woken him up, and his name was Freddie. And Freddie opened the door without no shirt, and he was wearing some, long drawers. And it was at a mobile home park, and he came outside. Dogs were barking like crazy. He was trying to get them settled down. And I showed him the lead card, and he hadn't even wiped the sleep out of his eyes yet. And we sat down on some chairs in his front yard, and I did my presentation, and he wanted to buy, and but he couldn't afford it, and I kept going down and down. And to make a long story short, I closed this guy like 5 or 6 times, right? And to myself, I said, this first house is going to dictate my trip. This is going to work. I have to make this first one work. And when it was all said and done, I think he got the least amount of coverage, which was $2,000. And it was like $20 a month, or a little bit over $20. He went graded, right? He didn't qualify for a level, so it was graded.
Okay.
Mutual of Omaha. And to this day, he's still on the books. I talk to Freddie about every, I don't know, 6 or 7 months. We usually talk on his birthday and around the holidays. And he's very long-winded, but he's a character. But I mean, I just remember in my mind, I had to make it work, and I was not gonna, walk out of there without an app. And so I never even made it inside the guy's house. We did it right there in the front yard. So, but anyway, to transition what you're talking about, you know, Joe and I were talking about this earlier, and one of our agents down in the Valley in Texas had a new agent training program earlier this week, and I mentioned it to them. Is that, you know what? There's a saying going around, and it makes a nice little bumper sticker, and it says, you know, do what you love most, and you will be successful. And Joe and I were talking about that, and I was like, you know, that's a bunch of bullcorn. uh, you to be successful, to be highly successful, you need to get out of your comfort zone. You need to do the things that you don't want to do. You need to do the things that's going to push you. You need to do the things really and truly, Joe, that nobody else wants to do. And if you
Right.
do those things and you excel at it, then you're going to be highly successful, because you just want to stay in the comfort zone where you're not going to accomplish anything. You're not going to break any records. You're not going to put a lot of money in your pocket, you know. Anyway, I'll give it back to you, Joe.
Well, just a couple of things. One is I just want to tell you, I remember Freddie and I remember you. I remember that first door knock, and I can remember like it was yesterday you telling me that exact same story years and years ago. And it's just sometimes you just you gotta push through. But a couple of things I want to talk about as far as comfort zone um, is you know things that you're currently maybe you can make a list. What are things that you're doing now that you're comfortable with, that a lot of times we know what we should be doing, but we just don't do it because we're fearful. um, I can tell you this: if you like to sleep and you're sleeping 8, 9, 10 hours a day, you ain't going to be successful. You need to get out of your comfort zone. If if you sleep until 8 o'clock in the morning, you're not going to be successful. You need to get up. You need to get out of your comfort zone, get your day started, whether it's 5:30, 6:30. You need to get your day up and moving. The thing that I have found, Jimmy, is where I was always the most successful, is when, out in the field, is when, man, I got up early, got knocked out everything I needed to do, make sure I was fully prepared for the day. And, I was knocking on my first door. If not before 9 o'clock, no later than 9 o'clock. Sometimes, 8:30, usually never before 8:30. I'm not going to knock on someone's door at 8 o'clock. But when I was running appointments in Indiana, as an example, which is over an hour drive, I mean, I was getting up easily by 6 o'clock, getting my day started, getting everything done, going through all my folders, and then getting in the car. So by the time I got there, I was ready to start doing my first door knock just before 9 o'clock. So, you know, maybe that's something. Maybe the first thing you need to do to change out of your comfort zone is getting more prepared and stop sleeping so much. And then when you move into the fear zone, some of the things that you can see on the screen is that you're going to have a lack of confidence. And when you have a lack of confidence, we start making excuses. Then excuses lead into procrastination. So when you're fearful and you should be out door knocking or making phone calls, that's when you start making excuses. Well, I really need to follow up on this policy, or, I need to organize my, you start doing stupid stuff. What Jimmy and I refer to, you start doing non-income producing activities when we should be doing income producing activities. And then as we transition, we go from the comfort zone, we're going to go through the fear zone. And let me just tell you something. Everybody, I don't care who it is, everybody goes through these four phases. And there's a lot of written material, or you could just, YouTube comfort zone. There's a lot of different people that give little seminars or little motivational speeches about going through the different phases and transitioning from the comfort zone, and eventually we want to get into the growth zone. But once we're able to, one other thing I want to mention about the fear zone, there's only one way to transition from comfort and be able to get through the fear zone, which is the next zone is the learning zone. The only way to be able to do that is to take massive action. So in that transition, going from fear to learning is where we take, that's the part where we want to take massive activity. And what I have found personally, and what the experts say, is that massive activity is the key to be able to get through the learning zone, because what you want to be able to do is condense those timetables. So when you get into the learning zone, that's when you're going to be acquiring new skills. Maybe you're not great on the phone. Maybe you're not a great door knocker yet. Maybe you don't know all your products yet. You're going to get through the learning zone. You're going to get through the learning zone by taking massive action, dealing with challenges. Sometimes what will happen is that we kind of start breaking through the fear zone a little bit. We get into the learning zone and we start learning a new skill, but then we have challenges, and then it's very easy to start regressing and getting back into the comfort zone. So in order to stay out of the comfort zone, we have to continuously always be working on ourselves. That's why Jimmy and I, we talk so much about self-improvement. Why do you think we talk about so much about self-improvement? Because what's the old saying, Jimmy? You're either growing or dying. You can't be doing both at the same time. So that's why, like, having a personal development program, whether it's reading, attending seminars, watching YouTube videos, which is great. I recommend reading more. I mean, like YouTube videos are great. There's a lot of great information. But what's even better than YouTube is reading books. And that's a way to get through the learning zone, that things that will improve your self-confidence. And as you go through the learning zone, you start extending your comfort zone a little bit. And Jimmy, I'll turn it over to you, let you kind of expand on the learning zone, and maybe maybe if there's some tips or just your thought process of how you've been able to move through the fear zone to the learning zone. Because I'm sure when you started the process, become a securities license, become a certified financial planner, you must have had some anxiety and a little bit of fear, correct?
Uh, I had a little anxiety about taking the test, but I didn't really, I don't know. I when I decided I wanted to do it, I just moved forward. I didn't really have any, resistance in my mind.
Good.
But I do I do want to say something. So I actually have a contractor that's about to walk in my door. So let me just open the door for him, and then I'll tell him to be quiet.
Okay.
So I have I wanted to say something, really and truly, guys, like Joe was talking about your comfort zone, and you were saying, sleeping in late, literally that is comfort zone, right? You're in the comfort of your bed, you're all snuggled up, maybe, you have your significant other with you, right? You don't want to get out of bed. Hey, you know what? You need to get up early. I think we would do much better as an agency if our guys got up at 8. I think our guys are getting up past 8, Joe, to be honest with you. But you you know, think about this. If you want to have an unfair advantage, uh, I think everybody would like to have that. Think about this: if you were to go to Vegas, right, and you're going to the, let's say, the craps table, or you're going to the poker table, or maybe you're gonna play blackjack, wouldn't you like to have some sort of unfair advantage that the other players didn't have? And if you had that unfair advantage, wouldn't you like totally like utilize it? What do you think, Joe? Would you do it?
Yeah, in a heartbeat.
In a heartbeat, right? Well, you
Yeah.
guys, you have the opportunity to have an unfair advantage in your own market, in your own space. think about this. When the other agents are still in bed at 8 o'clock and you got up at 4 or 5 or maybe 6, I mean, I get up at 4. If you get up that early, what can you get done before 8 o'clock? You can go through your emails, you can check your pending cases, you can review your illustrations if you're working on a project that's not final expense, but you can practice, rehearse, drill. You can get, you can meditate, pray, whatever you need to do to get your mind right.
Yeah.
And then you eat breakfast, you exercise, you get out of the house and you're ready to go at 8 o'clock. You're way ahead of your competition. You want to have an unfair advantage? Go to sleep early so you can get up early. That, it starts with that. But we can expand on that. The one example I wanted to give for me was actually telephone calls. I remember, it's been many years now, Joe, but do you remember when we had that conference in Dallas at the Omni Hotel?
Oh yeah. Yeah, of
You remember
course.
that?
Yeah.
And we went out drinking. We went out drinking the night before.
That was not a good night, Jimmy.
And so the following day, day two at this conference, it was a Saturday morning, and we started. I think Joe said, "Let's start at 7:30," right? And we drank a lot that night. Joe was hurting. I just remember watching his face, the pain, right? And so at 8 o'clock, he wanted to prove a point. At 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning, if you start your first dial at 8, not get up at 8, not make yourself a cup of coffee at 8, you know, be ready to roll at 8 and make your first call at 8. He wanted to prove how many appointments you could book within the first hour if you start at 8. Because in my mind, I kept resisting. Joe kept telling me, and I said, man, that's too early. I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to wake anybody up. 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning, I think I would be pissed off if somebody called me at 8 o'clock. So Joe had to prove it to me. So he proved it to everybody. And I don't remember the exact number, but we set several appointments that morning from 8 till 9 o'clock. It was like a whole hour of just dialing for dollars, right? And we booked all these appointments. It was crazy. I forgot what agent he was booking them for, but whoever the agent was in Dallas at that time. And he proved a point to me. So I still had that fear, right? So I moved out of my comfort zone to the fear zone, and I said, man, I got to try this, right? So my first Saturday morning, I was ready to roll at 8 o'clock. I made my first dial. And I believe I booked like 4 appointments that first time between 8 and 9. And then I continued dialing on till 12. And in my practice, every Saturday morning, I make those dials, right? And I track the progress every single Saturday without fail. The most appointments I booked in an hour was always the hour between 8 and 9 o'clock. That was the most appointments I have ever booked every single Saturday. That was the time slot I booked the most appointments. So that's now I'm into the learning zone. And so what I'm trying to convey to you guys is when we tell you stuff and maybe it pushes you out of your comfort zone, you need to experience that. You need to get out there and do it because we're telling you from experience. You got to get up, you got to get early. Same thing with the door knocking. If it's a door knocking day, I mean, Richard Luna's, my number one, door knocker to this day. And he knocks on that first door at 8 o'clock. He
Mhm.
says he leaves the house at 7:30. He's in position and he might have to sit in the car for a few minutes, but he actually knocks on the first door at 8 a.m. He says that between the hour of 8 and 9 o'clock, he has the most sits than any other hour throughout the day. Think about that. So that means he's finding somebody at home. It might not be that first door, might not be that second door, but sometime between 8 and 9, he always gets a sit. So how would you like to guarantee yourself a sit every day? Well, get out of your comfort zone, leave the house early, and go knock on that first door early. But you can't do any of that unless you get out of bed early, right?
Right. Yeah. If you're
So
sleeping until 8 o'clock, honestly, if you're sleeping until 8:30, realistically, my bet is you're probably not knocking on that first door until about 11:30 or noon.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair assessment. Yep.
So, it's, but again, man, it's just, pushing through that fear zone. And again, man, it's massive activity that's going to get you through. And you gotta be able to go out there and learn those new skills. And then as we're growing and we're getting through the fear zone, the learning zone, eventually what we want to get into is the growth zone. So the two zones that we constantly want to stay in is that the learning zone and the growth zone. And then the growth zone is ultimately is where you're starting to see success, you're starting to live your dreams. Your bank account is a reflection of the work that you've done. You start finding you have more purpose in your life. The thing that I've always found, Jimmy, is that, man, the harder I work and the more knowledge I gain, and the quicker I get through the fear zone, that it starts giving me more purpose, and I start having what I would say more clarity. And that's the thing about finding your purpose. When you find your purpose is when you start getting what I refer to as is clarity, and everything starts making sense. And then when you're in the growth zone, everything becomes a little bit easier. Like, getting up, once you start developing those daily habits of getting up early, getting your day started, going out and knocking on those doors, it honestly becomes easier, and it becomes second nature. You start expanding your goals. You start, hey, if I've achieved this, then, what's the next level? So the thing about these different zones is that it's going to be a progression. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to go through the learning zone, you're going to get into the growth zone, and then when you try something new, you're going to have to go through the fear zone again. But once you start developing those habits, is that you're going to be able to break through the fear zone a lot quicker, and you're not going to revert back into the comfort zone. The thing about it is that if you always stay in your comfort zone, you're never going to break through. Once you've been able to break through the comfort zone, in breaking through, here's the other point I want to make, is that breaking through the comfort zone is not like a once in a lifetime activity. Okay, in your career, you may have to break through the comfort zone 50 times, or 100 times, because there's always going to be when you try something new, and you do something and you learn a new skill, you learn a new product, you learn a new technique, you're always going to have a little bit of fear or anxiety that you're going to have to break through. And then when you get into the growth zone, finally, you're able to conquer those fears. And the more time you progress through these different zones, what I found personally, the easier it is. So now when I try something new, I don't stay in the fear zone for very long. That's like what Jimmy said, when he talked about, developing the new skill and becoming a financial planner, getting his licenses. He really didn't go through the fear zone. And the reason why is because he's already been through that probably, 100 times. So for him, it's already become second nature to be able to go right from, hey, I'm comfortable here, but I want to get here. Here's the new skill I want to learn through, and just zip right through the comfort zone. The problem is that a lot of times people get into the fear zone and they start the learning zone, but it seems too difficult, so they get right back into the comfort zone. And then before we get into the full content, or what, the other part of our call, when I was doing a little bit of research on preparing for today's call, I was looking at some different things on YouTube. I don't know, a lot of people know that I'm a big fan of Steve Harvey. I've read a couple of his books. I like watching him on YouTube. But to me, I think he's got a great story. Totally rags, like broke, living out of his car with $30 in his pocket to a multi-millionaire. Anyway, as I was doing my research, there's this little video that came up. It's only 3 minutes long, but Steve Harvey talks about, how important it is to get out of your comfort zone. What I'm going to do, if you're watching this on the replay on YouTube, I'm just going to put a link of that video in the description of this. So if you're watching this video on replay, when you're done, you can go back in, look in the description, click on the YouTube link. You can watch that 3-minute video with Steve Harvey. I think you'll find it extremely beneficial. It's extremely motivating. So, Jimmy, any other last comments before we get into the increasing our effectiveness and how
Yes,
to be
sir.
better in in-home presentation?
Yes. In fact, I'll just make a quick mention about Steve Harvey. You said rags to riches, but you know what? And I'm sure you know this, Joe, but for the audience, he wasn't necessarily rags at first. He actually had a really good corporate job at AT&T and with all the benefits, but his desire was to go out and become a comedian, right?
Yeah.
So he had to take that leap of faith, and he wrote a book about it called Jump, right? He made that jump and he went into, the comedy scene self-employed, and that's basically how he started, the rags part, because he went from a very good corporate job, well
Yeah.
paid, to nothing. And then
He was in his comfort
he was
zone,
in his
right?
comfort zone. That's right.
Yeah.
And
He
so,
talks
and
about that.
the other thing I wanted to say too, and really, we talked about this briefly earlier, is, dominating your space, dominating your area. Hey guys, if you're focused on your competitor, you're not going to dominate. What you want to do is focus on improving yourself. You want to live and push yourself to reach your full potential. So maybe you're out there and you're very talented, very talented. Maybe you're a high producer, and because you're beating everybody else, you're in your comfort zone. Man, you got to push yourself to the limit to beat your own records, to beat your own self. And when you push yourself to beat what your full potential is, then you're going to dominate everything in your area. So I thought I'd just throw that out there. Joe, I'll turn it back over to you.
Absolutely. One other thing about Steve Harvey, he talked about his comfort zone where he left the corporate job, he made it through that, but and he made a lot of money. One of the problems that he talks about is that he got some really bad financial advice too, and he had a lot of people that stole from him, and he went from a millionaire to being millions of dollars in debt, which is the opposite of a millionaire. But again, he wasn't broke. He was below broke again after he made it, and then was able to, not give up again, get out of his comfort zone. So that's why I said, man, the comfort zone is it's not stagnant. It's not like you just get out of your comfort zone once. It could be multiple times a year. It could be multiple times a week that we have to get out of our comfort zone. So it's not a one and done type thing. We constantly need to be working, getting out of our comfort zone. As Steve says in this video, is that you have to become comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's when you really start to grow. So getting into what Jimmy and I, I guess you say the second topic of our call is really talking about increasing your effectiveness in the homes. And we just want to give you some ideas on, how to be more effective. The one thing I want to bring up is there's this book by T.F. Tinney. To me, I don't know if he's written any other books, but I really like the title of his book, and I haven't read it in a long time. Somebody recommended it to me like 10 years ago. But the name of the book is The Main Thing is Keeping the Main Thing the Main Thing. And that's kind of what Jimmy and I want to talk to you about today, is keeping the main thing the main thing. And, it's very easy sometimes when we go into a home to make a presentation is to, get down these rabbit holes and start talking about a million different things, other products and life insurance and, maybe it's Medicare supplement or long-term care or whatever. Our goal today is to give you some tips on how to concentrate and keeping the main thing, and the main thing should be the reason why they filled out that lead card. And that's the main thing, is covering their final expenses. That's the main thing. And I can tell you this personally, when I first got started I first got my license in 2009, which I think a lot of you know that. The company I was working for, we mainly focused on mortgage protection, which was all phone calls and pretty much all preset appointments. I didn't start working, I started working final expense leads in 2010. I think it was in the spring of 2010, because the company I was working with, there just weren't any leads. They couldn't, the housing crisis was going on. Nobody was getting, it was very difficult to get mortgage protection leads. So these new leads, which I'd never heard of before, which were final expense leads. And a lot of you that know my story know that in the beginning, working final expense, is I was really horrible at it. And the reason why I was horrible at it is because I wasn't keeping the main thing the main thing. And when I was going to see these appointments, and these people had filled out, I wish I had some of these old lead cards. The lead card specifically said on the lead card, state regulated final expense programs, to cover your final expenses. And what did I do? I went in and started talking about life insurance, and different things. And needless to say, I can tell you, I was not successful. There was a point I was probably ready to give up, because I had invested a lot of money in direct mail leads, and I didn't make any sales. My first batch of leads, I totally went blank, and I kept analyzing to myself. I was like, man, what am I doing wrong? They sent the lead card in. Don't they want to buy insurance? Because Jimmy, they kept, it's kind of, anybody that's ran a life insurance lead, especially final expense leads, the majority of your clients at some point in time, when you're kind of refreshing their memory, most of them will say to you, okay, tell me again, what's this about? I know I filled the card out, but what's it about? I kept going in and talking about life insurance. Well, it isn't it obvious that you sent the card in. This is about life insurance. Oh, and Jimmy, I wish I had a recording, because it was like the client said the same thing every single time. It was like they gave me the deer in headlights look and said, life insurance. Oh, I don't want life. I thought this was about something else. Okay. And then I'll tell you something that totally transformed my business. Okay. And it's just this tiny little thing, is that I stopped talking about life insurance, and I started talking about final expenses, and I started talking about the importance of alleviating or eliminating the financial burden that when they pass away. So when a client started asking me, so Joe, state regulated program, what's this about? Mr. and Mrs. Client, here's what I can tell you, is that most of the people that send this card in tell me their main concern was they just want to make sure that when they pass away, they're not leaving their family with a financial burden. I'm assuming that was your concern. Oh, and then it was like night and day, Jimmy. They started saying, oh yeah, that's why I sent it in. Just changing that one little thing. Totally, I'm just telling you, it's probably the reason why I've stuck with final expense. And that was really kind of the beginning of me creating the senior solutions sales platform happened back in 2010, and then slowly over the years, refining it and adding in and it different things. So that's going to be our topic today. Is really is to give you the, I guess, the insight, and not to go down those rabbit holes, and to really make sure that we're keeping the main thing the main thing. And the main thing is that focus on the concern of the clients, not the product. Jimmy, I feel like I'm rambling a little bit. I know you had a lot of thoughts to this. Let me turn it over to you. I'm going to recollect my thoughts, and then
Okay.
I'll chime back in here in a second.
No, you did very well. You weren't rambling, but just to kind of feed off what Joe was talking about, when you go into a house, if you're talking about term life versus whole life, your ROP or IUL, and you start talking, if your conversation is going that way, you're way off track, right? You want to stay talking about final expenses. And, when Joe put that pre-sale folder together, if you use that every single time to guide you, that'll guide your whole conversation. I don't know how many new agents, when I start training and working with them, they tell me, oh, I just give them that at the end only if they buy. No, that's not how you use the pre-sale folder. The pre-sale folder is used to build rapport, credibility, and like keep you on track to tell your story, right? So part of that pre-sale folder, you pull out you know, um, the what do you call it? The burial cost, average cost for a funeral, average
Right.
cost for a cremation. But it starts by asking that question. Hey Joe, have you given thought to how you want to, how your final remains? Do you want to be buried, or do you want to have a cremation, or something alternative? I've heard all kinds of stories out there in the field, but you know what? You're not going to hear the story if you don't ask the question, right? And if I'm going to say probably 95% of the time, people are going to say either burial or cremation, right? So then you're going to pull that little flyer out of the pre-sale folder. You're going to talk about those costs, and you go down there. And I might be getting ahead of Joe here, but the thing
I'm
is
just
that
taking some notes.
okay, you want to keep your focus on solving the final expense need. The solution is going to be life insurance, but you're not going to talk about life insurance. You're going to talk about their final expenses, what their last wishes are. When you pull out, again, out of the pre-sale folder, the My Wishes, My Record Keeper that we use, that's a memorial guide, and you go through that. So if you keep your focus on them and solving their needs, which is final expense, that's the reason why they sent in the lead card, then you're going to be successful at a very high rate. I pull that My Wishes, My Record Keeper out. I go through it with them. I ask some of the questions, maybe fill out a couple of questions with them. I get them started anyway. It also, without going in depth about it, but it also helps me find out more about their financial situation. If they have any other beneficiary designated accounts. You might, and I don't know how many times I've walked upon an annuity because they have some money put away, not a lot, but they have something, and so anyway, so keep it about final expense, and you'll be successful. So John, I'm gonna give it back to you.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think sometimes agents feel like, maybe, whether it's their job or their responsibility, to go in and educate clients on all their different options and all the different products. And it's not. You got to remember, they didn't fill that card out and mail it in, or they didn't get online and fill out a survey about final expenses, because they wanted you to come to their house and educate them on the difference between, whole life insurance, term insurance, IULs, and, in different products. That's not our job. So the simpler we keep it, And Jimmy hit the nail on the head when he talked about focus. Our job is to go into initially is to raise their awareness about the need for the final expense and to raise their concern level. That's when your clients are going to, that's when they're going to purchase, is when because buying final expense insurance it's an emotional sale. People don't buy life insurance, and especially they don't buy final expense insurance because it's a solid financial investment and it makes sense. You know what I mean? That's not why they do it. They do it because of the emotional side, and that's what we got to focus on, is the emotion. That's why we talk about when we talk about what their concern is, and we use words like not leaving your family with a financial burden, and we ask questions about if they've done any pre-planning. Oh, whether they have a program. Do you want? And Jimmy said, do you, folks, are you leaning more towards burial or cremation? And the reason why we ask questions like that is because we're getting the client to visually kind of get that picture in their head. Because as soon as you ask that question, you ask anybody, hey, have you done any pre-planning? Okay, whether they have or not. They say, yeah, I've done some pre-planning. Oh, well, out of curiosity, Jimmy, are you thinking more about cremation or like a full burial? You can't help it, but in your head, it's like you're visualizing your own funeral. Like you're thinking about, this is what I want. It's like when we were when I was in the car business and we were selling cars, one question, it's kind of a stupid question, but one of the questions we'd always ask a client, hey, what this car that you're looking at, do you think this would fit into your garage? Okay. And you can't help it, but when someone asks you that question, they're visualizing the car in the garage. Okay, so you're kind of getting that client to take mental ownership of physically having that car in the garage, and they're saying, yeah, it should fit with no problem. We're doing the same thing, but instead of a tangible item, we're doing that with an intangible item. That's what we're selling. We're selling a concept. We're selling an intangible item. That's why it's so important that with final expense sales and life insurance sales is that we focus more on what the product does and less on less on the features and benefits of the product. We're not selling a car or a house or something else that has, you can demonstrate it. That's why it's so important for us to create that mental image. And that's the reason why that we have the process that we have. That's the reason why that the Senior Solutions sales process is so effective, is because we're walking the client through, and we're getting them to think about things that they've never thought about, and we're getting them to take mental ownership of putting a final expense plan in place, in creating the awareness. That's one thing I like to do, is I like to create the awareness, kind of take the concern to a new level. Our clients that we deal with, honestly, their main concern is really just making sure there's enough money to cover the final expenses. As a sales agent, what we're doing is we're kind of taking that to the next level. We're not just leaving it alone. A client says, yeah, Joe, when I say my little spiel and they come back and say, yeah, that was my concern. Well, I don't automatically just jump right in. Oh, okay, well, you're concerned about your final expenses. Well, let me show you how we can eliminate that. No, we take it to that's the reason why the pre-sale folder, and why we call it the pre-sale folder, is because we're taking that client from, if you can see my hand, we're taking them from this level of concern to a maximum level of concern, in creating that emotional feeling that they're going to create, that they don't want to leave that person, the people that they love, they're not going to leave that person with a financial burden. And then what we're doing as the agent is we're simply finding the solution for their problem. We're helping them make a selection to the right product. One of the things that I like saying to the clients, and this is the reason why all the little steps, that's the reason why it's important to learn all the little steps, like what we do is like, with the bond and rapport and the upfront contract, the one thing that I would recommend is that at least in the first, maybe not until the end of your presentation, is eliminate the word life insurance. Okay, so you can use, there's certain words that you can use to substitute, like what I do is I just call it a program. Hey, this program is designed to do this. This program will do this. I don't really refer to it as life insurance, and probably till the very end, if it even comes up. There's sometimes where I do an in-home presentation, and I think I'm out the door with my application, or if I submitted an e-application, and quite honestly, the word life insurance never came up. Like I never actually used the word life insurance for the entire time. And one other real quick tip I'm going to give you is when it talks about the upfront contract, as an example, when I'm asking the client, Mrs. Smith, out of curiosity, do you know how these programs work? They're always going to say no, and I explain it to them. And this is one of the things that I say is that, how the program works is that, my job, I'm a state licensed field underwriter, and this is where I use the word life insurance. I tell my clients is that I don't work for a life insurance company. Okay. I'm a state licensed field underwriter. My job today is simply just to go over your medical history and to help find a program. And this is where I substitute life insurance. To help you find a program that will fit your needs, so you're not leaving your family with a financial burden. And simply, Mr. and Mrs. Client, if we can find a program that works for you, I'm just going to help you simply apply for it. Okay, so that's the one time I will use the word life insurance, but I'm telling the client I don't work for a life insurance company, because I don't work for a life insurance company. So again, if you want to be more effective and you want to make more sales in the home, focus on the main thing, which is the concern of final expenses and helping your clients find the best solution for eliminating that problem. And focus on the emotion and focus on the concern, and I promise you, you will make a lot more sales focusing on that versus being the educator and going in and trying to educate your clients on the 10 different types of life insurance that are available. So that was our tip of the week, Jimmy. So I'll if you have anything else to add to that, which would be great. If not, probably just end the call here very, very shortly. We're almost out of time anyway. Oh, Jimmy, did I accidentally unmute you? I know you have that contractor in the
Oh,
house.
okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I muted myself. I forgot I had done that because they were
No problem.
kind of making noise in the background. But I just want to give you guys one specific tip that I use when I'm working with people, and I asked them in the very beginning. And if you read the magic formula, you're supposed to ask, why did they mail in this card, right? And you give them three options. But usually I just ask it open-endedly, right? I say, and Joe kind of said it earlier, is like, most people that mail these cards in, they mail in it simply is just because when they pass away, they don't want to pass that financial burden on to their family. Is that why you send it in, or why did you send it in? They'll tell you, right? They usually always agree or say something along those lines. I often hear stuff like, "Oh, my brother, my sister, my, somebody in the family recently died, and the family had to go through, all of this stuff, and I don't want my family to have to deal with that, right?" So that's usually either they verbalize it, and if they do, you want to like expand on that. But if they don't verbalize it, you got to understand that's what they're thinking, right? Even if they don't verbalize it. So when they say yes, that's why I mailed it in, right? Then I build on that and I say, well, let me ask you something, Joe. Like let's say I find out, do you have anything in place? And they say no, because let's just say 80% of the people don't have anything in place. So let's just go
Right.
with the majority, right? And they say, no, I don't have anything in place. Well, so Joe, who in your family is going to be that person responsible to make all the arrangements and, get all that stuff paid? I ask that question, and then they usually will say, my daughter, my son, my brother, my sisters, some family member. That's who they're trying to protect from having the
Right.
burden. So now you're
Right.
going to focus on that person, right? So, Joe, you said your daughter is going to be the one that's responsible. Tell me a little bit about your daughter. Does she have her own family? How old is she? What does she do for a living? Right? I focus on that person. They
Right.
tell
And
me all
get
about them.
their name too, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, my
So,
daughter Rachel, she's
right.
she works at the hospital. She's a nurse's aide. She has 3 kids. She's struggling. She's a single parent, or maybe she's married, and you know uh, and then so I ask if they don't already come out, because a lot of times they just tell you everything. I don't want her to have to go through this. That's what you want them to say. But if they don't say it on their own, then you have to stimulate that with a question. So the question
Right.
I ask is, how is this going to affect Rachel? Let's say, for example, something happened, God forbid, you walk out of your house, plane falls on top of you, and you pass away. How is it going to impact her today without having anything in place? And then I let them respond. And so you're building that emotion that Joe talked about earlier, and you're getting them to visualize their loved one struggling financially. And then you can add on that. You can just simply say something to the effect, not only is it going to be a time of mourning and grief, but when you compound that with the financial burden and the stress of trying to figure out how they're going to do it all, you know I want to commend you, Joe, because you sent this card in. I'm glad you sent it in, because I see that you don't want her to go through all of that. I'm going to help you today. When I leave today, before I leave today, we're going to have all this taken care of, and you're going to have the peace of mind of knowing that Rachel's going to be taken care of. And they always say, okay, right then and there's Jimmy's tip. I closed them. I hadn't even pitched anything yet, Joe.
Right.
And when
Yeah.
you do it like that, that's how you're successful. So keep the main thing, baby.
Well, that was a great tip, man. So let's end it on an upbeat note. That was definitely the tip of the week. So we'll end it right there, man. Thanks for sharing all of your wisdom and knowledge, Jimmy.
Oh, thank you, Joe. Well, it all starts with you, baby.
I appreciate that, man. Well, all right, everybody, have an awesome weekend. If you need anything, certainly don't hesitate, reach out, and we'll get you the information that you need. God bless. Take care, Jimmy. Have an awesome weekend.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, bye, everybody.